always involves structure from bones, muscles, ligaments, tendons to the emotions. Those are always the two first things that get addressed. And you mentioned NET. That's one of the things I love talking about now. It has been the most important game changer in my life for someone who's had a lot of concussions, who's the athlete conversation. Physically getting beat up in games from gymnastics to lacrosse, field hockey. These are sports of women.
So this is the neuro-emotional technique that you're talking
whatever it is, there's oftentimes a mental stressor wired into the physical injury. Like the coach did this, or we lost the game, or I didn't play as well as I want. There's often something wired in. It's called conditioned response.
Okay, welcome to the Conscious Broadcast. I'm Danielle Kane, and I'm excited to be here with a good friend of mine, Dr. Kevin Gyurina. And a little bit background on him, is a regenerative health specialist trained as an integrative healthcare doctor and chiropractic physician. His current practice treats patients of all types with an emphasis on the correction of chronic neurological and structural illness. And his secondary focus is on biochemistry and toxin elimination that are related to numerous conditions, allergies, autoimmune disorders, and the like. Been there, know what that's like. And he also helps his clients analyze and optimize with a combination of tools and therapies, including Neuro-Emotional Technique. I think we did that, and I loved it. Applied Kinesiology, AdvancedBio-StructuralCorrection, AO scan, and nutritional supplementation via extremely pure sources. Love it. Welcome. Dr. Kevin, is it okay if I call you Dr. Kevin?
Please, it's much more relaxed.
Good.
Yeah.
Well, I'm glad it's finally time. We've tried to schedule this for a while now, and another quick how we got to know one another. I like to share with my audience. I'm very fortunate enough to have done, I want to call it alternative schooling, just kind of like what Dr. Kevin does. It's alternative medicine, I guess, in some way. And I love it because it allows you to expand how you want to work with your children, and just like with your healthcare or your body, you can seek out people that are in flow with you, that resonate with you. And so we had our children in school together. So I was really excited to meet him and learn more about him. And we were talking about what we do, and we were just like, I love it. So we're here.
It was amazing how many people that I resonated with, the parents that had their kids at the school. So it was a beautiful experience for myself. My daughter loved it. And we just being in nature and being in a free flow environment was so rewarding. Yeah, it had structure. I mean, that's the beautiful thing. It had regular good old structure, but a lot of play, and which has, this, I'll bridge it into neurology here. It seems to be better for the growth of the individual and the personality to express the kind of free play, more creative time, more outside time, more time with nature, exploring, but also getting their hands in the mud, using tools and building things, and that versus the memorize the data, repeat for the test, get the grade. It seems to be at like 8-9 years old that starts to become more advantageous. Though in the early years, it's so much more rewarding for the long-term health and happiness of a kid.
Yes, I think that we are going back to the way that we're meant to learn. We're meant to be outside. We're meant to be, crouched over, getting our hands dirty. We've lost a lot of our squat pattern. By what age? I mean, I think as early as like 5 or 6, they can, because they're already sitting in chairs. So I think it's great that we have this option, and it's becoming more popular. So that's a positive. And for me, I got to meet awesome people like you. So we're all finding each other and finding healers, finding people that are practicing things that on my journey, for example, I've told people numerous things, like when I had my spiritual awakening, even before my spiritual awakening, I was doing chiropractic. That was one of the first modalities outside of Western medicine that I did.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
it was
Beautiful.
extremely beneficial for me. And it was in my early 20s. And thankfully I found that sooner than later, because even when I saw you, I was kind of messed up from a couple of years ago from having children, and just overall my posture from emotional traumas and just traumas in general. So,
Well, and it's not just you. There's environmental things coming at us. There's the there's the psychological component. There's the toxin component in food, air, and water. There's things in our society today that 20 years ago didn't deal with. 30 years before that didn't deal with. We go in these generational clips. We've had to adapt faster to new things than ever before, and the human body has a capacity. Yet we're seeing the adaptive response, which the medical system looks at as more diagnosis of diseases and more problems and neurodivergency and all these standard problems that you see so prevalent today, even from cancers, everything, heart disease, obesity, all of that is the human body's natural response to the lack of the right things and too much of the wrong things. And that's the nuances of getting into those topics is where all the hard yards are of education and continued studies and all that. And though very rewarding.
so tell me how did you want to get started with all this? And obviously you built up over time, because you're over here, you're over here. I can tell, like, you don't just pick this all up in one,
no,
certification, one degree.
No.
So tell me a little bit about your journey.
Well, to getting on this path of getting a doctorate in chiropractic really started with me just following my intuition in sports and being in play as a kid. I just enjoyed the things I enjoyed, and I excelled at the things I enjoyed. So that became art and music and football, believe it or not, and javelin, and those things I just kept going towards what doors opened up. I had through that in part. Now looking back, I see I had significant number of head injuries before 10 years old. Way different than the average kid, with boating accidents and falls certain ways. And nonetheless, so I was involved in pretty significant medical intervention between 10 and 14, 10 and 16 for a different number of things. And I got to experience the world of rehab and all of that. And so here I am. My body still grew in spurts, and I just became, I grew into myself, and I was a fair good athlete. But that opened the door to college, which opened the door to me doing exercise sports sciences. I wanted to become a physical therapist. I've been through so much PT. I was like, this is actually a pretty cool job. You're helping people, you're working with bodies, you're getting to know them. There's a relationship in it. It was really cool. I had some great therapists when I was young. And that led me to taking a part-time job offer to get graduation degree credits for my undergrad. And that was through a chiropractor. And I saw things that I didn't think possible happen in that office. And I was like, okay, I want to try this out. I'm like 3 weeks in there, 2 weeks in working there. Saw this surgeon who he started his first patient day the same day as my first day of work. So that was really cool. So him and I were cool. And he told me he had an ulcer in his stomach, and he was done everything medically possible. And he was a couple of weeks away from surgery. He didn't want to get it. And he started coming. He was a chiropractor. And by the third visit, he had no pain in his abdomen anymore. And he couldn't believe it, but he was telling me the whole story. Such an impactful moment. So I started to really want to know what was going on. I learned about the brain, the central nervous system, and that's really what chiropractors are working on. However, when you go deeper into it, they're really also working on the intention of the doctor's intention of how they see the patient. This is those who are more philosophical delivering chiropractic. They see the patient as pure light. They see the patient as pure perfection. And in that mode, there's different ways and techniques to go about releasing interference to the expression of that perfection. Nonetheless, that's the kind of the eloquent way I've got to say it now. But back then, I just got faster, smarter, stronger. And I was in college football. I was getting measured all the time. And my stats get better. So much so They thought I was taking steroids and I had to go through
Really?
testing before games and things like that.
Wow. Where did
And
where
it's
did you
just
play?
University of Delaware.
Did you? So you
Mhm.
what position were you?
Defensive end and nose
Nice.
tackle.
Did you
Yeah.
play? Did you play when Joe Flacco was there?
Just before he
I
arrived.
was
Yeah,
gonna
that was it.
say that's
They made it
cool.
all the they took it all the way. We
Yeah.
got third in the nation. I'm very proud of that.
Yeah, because
But
well, just for people that don't know, I own a gym and one of our members was Joe Flacco from like the beginning. That was like our first big star that we trained.
wow.
So, and you guys went to college like almost at the same time. So
Yeah,
I
he
figured
just
you were close in
started.
age.
I remember being a year out of school, rooting for Delaware to win it all because Flacco's there. And I just missed him there, and nonetheless, it was such a Jersey pride moment. I lived in
Yeah,
Iowa at the time, and so
that's
Flacco
so
was great.
cool.
Yeah.
Yeah,
For
how did you
football,
make? So you're from Iowa originally?
no, I'm from New Jersey, but
But you
we're the original school of chiropractic is in Davenport, Iowa.
Oh, okay. Okay.
Yeah, right on Mississippi River, and it's a really cool spot. The Mississippi River goes east and west. It's just 3 hours from Chicago.
Yeah, we were there. I think we were very similar on the path when we drove on our cross country trip. We were following the Mississippi River, so I know exactly where you're
If you
talking.
took I-80 and through
Yes,
the Midwest, you hit it.
we
You went
did.
through it. Yeah.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Awesome.
There's
Well,
great, amazing healers in
yeah.
that area of the world. It's really interesting. Yeah.
So really, this is a personal story, how
Oh,
you
100%.
became who you
Yeah.
are today.
Yeah. It
I love that.
became these breakthrough moments in my own physical well-being that I was like, oh, this is way better than sitting behind a desk. I started not really liking the medical system because of my own experiences. I just didn't want to be poked and prodded and told this, that, and the other thing. I was just tired of it. And then I got introduced to this whole new way of looking at the human body, seeing what the human body is, how it heals, what the purpose of pain is all about.
Mm-hmm.
It became like a really freeing moment, actually. Now that I look
Yeah.
back like it. Yeah.
Can I ask you a question? Just based on your experience of working with, well, your own experience being almost like a super athlete going through this process versus your everyday person or someone who struggles getting through and getting the healing. How I know everybody's journey is different, but have you found common themes with someone like yourself who responds really well to this type of modality versus someone?
Yes. Well, I'll say this, athletes always respond well.
Mhm.
There's a physical resilience factor there. There is an age factor. There's a toxicity factor.
Yeah.
I don't know if the answers the
And
question.
meaning like toxicity that you can't control and toxicity that you can control.
Right. So sometimes and this is my first chunk of chiropractic was all about physical stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Then I got into the emotional energy world, and then I'm really getting into much more advanced biochemistry, how to detect. So that little scenario is to kind of go over 20 years of looking at something. There's like certain environments where people live that they don't know that part of their physical pain or part of their mental challenge or stressor is related to the factory, that's 10 miles around up the river or whatever, or something in the water supply from the city water. You didn't know you had your Brita filter, but you didn't know that only covered a certain percentage, and now there's certain toxins getting in, and you don't know why you're getting X, Y, or Z symptom, whether emotional or physical or otherwise.
Yeah. So if I were to come in as a first-time person, is your approach the same? Like you look at the person, or you kind of get the idea of this person has this problem, that person has a problem, and my approach is going to cater towards that problem. How do you go about looking at your clients?
Well, it's always two things. Number one, they have the top concern, and that's why the paperwork's there. They want to know what's up. However, how the work I do operates is through a reflex response, meaning the individual's body will give feedback as to what is the most important thing to do. And there's a way to confirm that it got complete. And that could be structural, it could be mental, emotional, it could be some type of nutrient needed. However, typically in every first meeting of an individual is we have a whole history and examination, and we do the most important thing. And then we come back for a deeper round. Yeah.
Awesome.
It always involves structure from bones, muscles, ligaments, tendons to the emotions. Those are always the two first things that get addressed. And you mentioned NET. That's one of the things I love talking about now. It has
Mm,
been the most important game changer in my life for someone who's had a lot of concussions, who's the athlete conversation. If isn't getting beat up in games
right.
from gymnastics to lacrosse, field hockey. These are sports of women.
So this is the neuro-emotional technique that you're talking about.
Whatever it is, there's oftentimes a mental stressor
Yeah.
wired into the physical injury. Like the
Yes.
coach did this, or we lost the game, or I didn't play as well as I want. There's often something wired in. It's called conditioned response.
Yes.
So
I
whatever the physical
completely
pain
can
is.
relate to you, especially with the work that we've talked about. It's so fun. When I came in and met with you, um, I was just really open. I needed an adjustment. So I was like, oh, I'm gonna go see Dr. Kevin. And my son had just gotten hit in the head. And I really kind of
Yes,
came for
that's
him,
right.
but I'm like, I kind of need some help too. And then
Yeah,
when I realized that you were tapping into like the emotion code in a way, I'm a little familiar with that.
yeah.
And I thought it was really cool how you were tapping in. Now, how I saw that you were connecting to almost like your higher self. It
Well,
was almost like you were connecting on a higher vibration, getting information, and also asking me questions. And I got a huge release that instantly, and I think I told you, went and felt like I almost looped out of a wormhole from trauma from a car accident when we
yeah,
had that adjustment. It was
yeah.
fascinating. I was so impressed that, that's why every healer has a purpose. You can go to one chiropractor and they're really good at just certain adjustments.
Mhm.
But with your experience, the experience that I had with you, I felt a deeper connection to my spirit as well.
Yeah,
I didn't
yeah,
feel like it was just a physical experience. I
yeah.
felt like it was a soul and physical experience. Like we're trying to get to work together.
Well, this is a huge point for me personally and professionally is there's nuances to chiropractic, and that's not well known. There's different methods. So there's just like medical doctors, there's the family practitioner who kind of looks at the whole thing. And in chiropractic, that's 80 to 85% of chiropractors out there. They have insurance, they have different physical therapies, movements, they're helping the ligaments, tendons get strong, they're providing exercises, and then you lay down table and a couple hands on, you lay on your side one way, the other way, and then the neck. And there is benefit to that work. Yet because of, and this is where all the beautiful things from Chinese medicine, Ayurvedic medicine, these long-standing practices, even things in shamanism and in other cultural healing modalities, the advancement of sciences today in quantum physics and all that, using technology are verifying why those things worked and why they're impactful. We now know very clearly that acupuncture has a very positive effect. Yet there's groups of professionals that have taken that knowledge and gone deeper. So that's why you see a majority of practitioners at a certain depth of application. Yet in my case, for me personally, I needed deeper care. I had more, I guess I had a few more problems that I knew that wasn't just getting resolved with the standard protocols. So I found that there was practices and ways of going about that just went deeper. That had great results, and some of them, and many of these methods, people don't recognize this, take 30 years of study of X-rays and reports and studies and comparisons and all these data collection, and it takes a long time to produce this in a way that's acceptable for the average professional, and then later on the public 30 more years down the road. But these advancements have been popping up in small little offices around the world for since the 60s and 70s, and these small pockets of techniques have been gaining momentum, and as doctors have discovered the energy flow and how to do it in a way that the Western mind can confirm it and can verify it and can see the results, and it's get better at it and better at it and better at it. And some of these methods do relate to thinkings and education, like you get in Reiki. There is connection to a higher place I tap into. And that is in people that see like you or feel.
Yeah.
I don't know how much your audience knows of what you do and whatnot but anyone who's empathic, the psychics out there, the people that have mother's intuition, any athlete, male or female, that knows where to be and how to be there, they automatically have this gift of tapping into these intuitive senses. And I just spent a lot of time in classes over 15 years, and sometimes before that in other ways, but enhancing, refining, learning to interpret those signals from those different realms.
Yeah. Now, did these different modalities come along the way, or did you they pop up? You were curious, you were interested. How did you come across like the neuro-emotional technique?
Well, a couple different ways. That is a method cited by a number of techniques. So I was aware of it, and so think of holistic healthcare as a tree. And then there's different branches that go in different ways, yet they all go back to the trunk. And so many of these methods that are getting phenomenal results all branch from one of the main 5 branches of chiropractic called applied kinesiology. And so most people know chiropractic for physical pains and ailments and muscles and things like that. Yet the 2 other realms are the chemistry and the organs, as well as the emotions and the mind.
Yeah.
And now we know very well there's also the field of energy around us. It's almost like a 4th component now. Yeah. And the human body has a reflex for every organ, for every chemistry component, for every emotional state, for every feeling, for every layer of the biofield. There's a reflex the human body can demonstrate. Is energy flowing well, or is it sick? And if it's sick, is it too much energy or too little energy? And then from there, we can find what's causing it. And so it's just these like neurologic reflex algorithms that we can go through to identify what the cause is, what's first, what the solution is.
That's so neat.
Do
you find that when you go through this technique that you have to readdress the similar patterns again, or do you feel like once you find the root cause, it will go away?
Well, so on the functional MRI, which is essentially saying a live stream image of brain function, functional MRI is when we can put the stressor back in front of someone's face, the brain doesn't light up in stress response. Or if you're listening to the stressor or seeing the stressor, whatever it may be, feeling the stressor, it doesn't light up the stress response. And so personally, when it's applied, the person's in the room, the issue doesn't seem to come up anymore later in the next visit. If anything, what happens is the psyche opens up to handle deeper issues.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's so neat to talk about this because it's like while you're working on this it's funny that you mentioned the tree, because that analogy is used a lot for the newer technique of hypnosis that I'm doing, and how Laura Whitworth is her name, describes our soul, right? Our actual soul from creator is the tree, right? And then we're just living like our twig right now, but we have multiple twigs and branches, but there is the main trunk is all of us. We're just very aware of only one branch at this time. So I loved how you talked about chiropractic in that way, because it's all so related and connected.
The world of hypnotism and what's the gentleman's name? Carl Jung. I'm not sure exactly his title. This is someone who had channeled messages, in 1890s, 1880s type of thing. Chiropractic is about helping the physical process the excess energy that's going out of balance. It's simple as that. If we get into the philosophy of it, it's about the flow of light within the physical body. And the physical body is a resistor. Now, that's an electronics term, but that's where when there's more resistance, lack of flow, there's more friction. Think of like bending the wire, a paperclip, and that produces heat, inflammation. So when there's resistance at the energy level, whether it's in a meridian, whether it's in an organ, whether it's in a thought, it produces excess energy in whatever zone of the body, and it's detectable by healers. and that's just, to bring this back to the tree, and we're all connected. Well, the source of energy that's being measured seems to be related to, at a certain level of it, all things. Like it's all connected. The concept of fractals, like the kaleidoscope.
Yeah.
The more you go in, the more it stays the same. So the more we go in, the more we see our connection to it all.
Oh yeah.
Yeah,
It's so cool. Speaking of the kaleidoscope, we went to the world's largest kaleidoscope in the Catskills in Kingston, New York. It's like mind blowing. You're seeing all these like images and and if you've ever done any plant medicine, my husband has done peyote, and he's like, this is like the peyote flower. So it's like the medicines are it's all like, just when I look at a lot of the healing modalities too, I kind of think of it as a flower, and you have different petals on the flower, and you can approach it with chiropractic, you can approach it with meditation, you can approach it with Reiki, you can approach it with hypnosis, you can approach it with plant medicines and things like that. Everybody has, and you're drawn to various things. I really am very open to each soul's journey taking a different path, and it being, you have to allow it. That person's journey is their journey.
It's a really interesting experience. The visualizations in plant medicine represent the computer graphic images of 12th dimensional type of movement and energy, the toroidal field, the colors, the descriptions from individual to individual are, depending on the medicine used, tend to be the same.
Right.
So there's like a universal experience going on. And I once in a while I like to keep up on quantum physics news, and and I popped on recently and I saw something about how it's called a local reality versus non-local reality. So it's the idea that our intention makes a difference, and that we can feel so something can be changed in me that will affect something else outside of me that I don't maybe not know what it is. And that's the concept of chords and cord cutting and I'll say cord connecting. However,
I love that intention. I think that's been a big focus for myself personally. And a lot of the things I'm seeing in modalities is, let's set the intention. That was one of the first things that I just did in my most recent, I did an energy clearing too. And we set an intention of what do we want to achieve here in this session. I think that's really important.
It's super powerful, super powerful. I know my caution is we keep it simple. Keep it simple. Yeah. Keep it simple, because it becomes like a daily affirmation. It trains into the space. It entrains into you. It becomes part of you. So that intention, and that can be updated and upgraded every 6 months, every 3 months, every once a year, whatever, every 2 years. However, it's a huge reminder in the healing space. But also I learned about that in another context, even like getting in your car, just intending on the safe drive, and things about other people being aware. And I played that game when I traveled overseas, and some places I did put the intention out, and I had clear sailing, so to speak. But other places I didn't put it out, and I had a lot of trouble, and I had interruptions. And so it's just super interesting how our intention can make a difference.
Not only that too, how do you deal with it when you have the interruption? I feel like that's a way to get you back in tune with your intention. Like if something were to happen, are you going to get all mad and all upset, or can you just pause for a minute and be like, okay, let me just deal with this. It's okay.
Well, that's like the art of
you get over that hurdle faster.
Well, that's the inner art of emotional intelligence, really, right? An inner alchemy kind of game. Like, can you feel the feeling and work through it? And there's different ways to work through it, but to gain the wisdom out, to extract the wisdom out of it, and to see the lesson and the blessing in it. That's the training.
That's a game changer. That's what completely changed me altogether as a person, rather than getting upset, being emotional, feeling victimized. I actually was like, okay, I feel this. I feel the emotions, but let me just look at the bigger picture. Oh my God, I learned a ton from that experience. And wow, like thankful for that experience now.
I feel like that is one of the most important things to like blast out to the world. Emotions are okay.
Mm-hmm.
Emotions are okay. So much of our society is we want to dampen the emotion, drink, drug,
Yeah.
pharmaceutical, it's so easy to go on the phone. It's going within. That's the hard work. It makes you grow. You gotta be honest with yourself.
Mm-hmm.
You gotta upgrade. You gotta learn something new. Maybe you gotta learn how to live with somebody, learn how to be a better parent, learn how to whatever strategy, surround yourself with good things.
How do you handle your emotions?
Well, there's a couple different ways. um, in neuro-emotional technique, there's a great method. You put one hand on the forehead, and you put the other fingertips on where your pulse is on your
Mm.
wrist. And that's called the FAST technique. It's called the first aid stress tool. And that literally in the moment helps harmonize your brain and your heart to calm down.
Mm. That's amazing. Do you like to
Uh,
do that? Do you do that with yourself?
I do it myself. I teach my daughters how to do it. She fights feeling that sometimes. But where she's really comfortable, there's another way of doing a different way of doing it is put one hand on the forehead, one hand on the heart. And that starts to bridge this connection here. As long as we're breathing through our nose, out through our mouth.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
But the personal growth method is like you said, feeling the emotion. Things happened 15 years ago. I started to really get past the dogma of astrology and look at it from more of an astronomy and cosmology perspective.
Mm-hmm.
But there's real effects to physical life from positions of the moon, the sun, the planet. That's why we have our farming seasons and growing seasons and all the stuff.
Mm-hmm.
But it has a real component with our psyche, with our seemingly higher part of ourself, a deeper part of ourself, a spiritual part of ourself. Nonetheless, part of the emotions I was sensing was me responding to changes in the external energies. And I thought it was me, but it was just the change outside of me. And I was noticing something, and I was assigning myself a feeling and a belief based on the analogy was walking by a rose and smelling something and thinking my nose is broken.
Hmm.
Okay. So
Okay.
here we are, Mercury and Venus and all these things are doing things. And I wake up and I feel like I'm having a horrible day. I'm having the worst health of my life. Everything's going wrong. However, as I got eloquent in knowing my psyche, knowing my feelings, knowing my emotions, and while studying at the same time external energy changes, I noticed that it was the change in the environment and I responded. Like walking into a cold room, walking into a hot room, walking into a smelly room. It's like this automatic dialogue of opinion or judgment, right? But in this context, it has to do with our soul, our psyche, our desires in life, and then the cosmic patterns of change.
Sure.
And
Absolutely.
certain times of life are more potent than other times of life for certain things. And we are seeing death and rebirth at a whole new level right now.
Yes. I
Internal
think
alchemy.
I think what's great, at least for me, where I could understand what you were just saying, things outside of you, is like if you take I'm going to talk about like parasites, for example. You can get rid of them energetically as well as doing like supplemental protocol.
Right, right.
And I didn't really understand that until I started doing a supplemental protocol to get rid of them. And then when I realized that is very real, I could understand that there's not just a parasite that's in physical form, because we're all energy, right? And so there's things happening, there's frequencies that we, like you just said, you don't know if the factory down the street is energetically affecting you more than somebody else.
Right.
And so it's really important in being aware that everything's energy. And I think that you start to get more interested in this beautiful universe of discovery of how it benefits you and things that maybe aren't in alignment with you. And I've learned a lot with just what Mother Nature has to provide, working with what she offers to really help balance myself. And how about you? I mean, do you work with in a shamanic way in your techniques? You mentioned that a little bit. Or do you happen to like using anything like crystals in your practice?
Well, I'll go on waves and peaks of that. Um, there's two modes. There's more of a clinical mode
Mhm.
where I use these protocols that are extremely effective, even at these energy levels people would use crystals for. However, it's very well known, and I definitely have an experience. And I have them sitting right over there, where crystals help ground the energy or
Yeah.
balance the energy or strengthen the new energy pattern, especially selenite.
Mm-hmm.
I think that I'll say this. I think it could be using that again in a more frequent manner.
Yeah.
I noticed that when I change locations from different buildings, different kinds of Wi-Fi affect me and affect the
Absolutely.
healing zone.
Yeah.
So I've gotten into places when I've done some healing sessions that are 2 hours, and I can go longer with certain people, but it depends. And that's the shamanic style of healing. I did a lot of self-training and study in that world for quite some time, like 2008 to 2012. And there are capabilities to do that work, though it doesn't always come up for people.
Mm-hmm.
And there's modes that there has to be a time and a space for that, and
Yeah.
that takes time and space. And so if someone there was one client that was willing to do that, and she wanted to do that, and we did that routinely. Every 2 or 3 months we would do a 2 hour session, and it would go into those different realms
Mm-hmm.
that methodology talks about, that experience talks about. And to me, those experiences are extremely real.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Things happen, patients experience things in the moment and after that don't seem directly correlated, but something changes in their life.
Yeah.
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 The energy pattern blueprint changes and then it plays out.
Yeah. You're like the Brian Weiss in chiropractic. You start off with, finding your way, and then all of a sudden, like, people come across your path, and then it just expands to more things. And I think that's great. I mean, the time frame that we've had together, I'm such an open book when it comes to helping one another and our growth. I mean, putting down those barriers that have blocked our growth. Like, I'm all about, like, limiting belief. See you later. Limiting belief. Let's move forward to getting, all that light, get our light back, the full spectrum, so we can feel what
Sure.
it's like to truly be integrated in this
Yeah.
lifetime.
Yeah. And you reminded me of something for myself. Thank you for saying what you just said. Is this cosmic astronomy component, there's cycles, the circle, the circular. And so patterns, things show up on certain times, certain days for you to process.
Yeah.
So this is where loving the emotions, be acknowledging the feelings is part of that inner alchemy that I go through each and every day, for sure. Kind of tie a couple conversations together.
Yeah. We
It's
could
a
go
daily
on
practice for
forever.
me, but it's also what I do every day for clients, and I study it. I'm fascinated by it. I want to know, like Brian Weiss. I want to know more about the various little niches of, well, this is all bad. This pattern is all clear, but something keeps showing up over here.
Yeah.
And then it's like it opens up a whole new channel of
Totally.
knowledge and techniques and things going on that were just waiting for me to see. So
Yes.
it's like thing knowledge builds on knowledge,
Mm-hmm.
and in that world I want to surround myself by the best of the best I could,
Yeah.
and from listening to physically being there in their space.
Yes. And the one thing I like about when I worked with you too is the connection. There is a connection that I felt energetically, where when I've gone to chiropractors before, or any healer, sometimes you're just there and you're going to get the service that you get. But there was something more when we met, that
Thank
I
you.
felt like there's something more to this individual, that we could continue to work together, and I could continue to get healing in various ways. And I appreciate that, because that puts the barriers away. It's
Oh,
not, you're very open and you
yeah.
want to explore to really truly get to the root cause of any kind of issues, yet expand that human.
Yeah, yeah. Well, so now you are verbalizing some of my intention. So it's beautiful. Thank you. And that's why my sessions are an hour long, or
Yeah.
some people this do a half hour, and that's it. Some are 2 hours, and because we do that, it is a connection. I these are concepts that I picked up over the years, but from shaman, different
Hmm.
reading of different things, but Chinese medicine practitioners, ancient writings. I even ran into on my travels and things, and even around Philadelphia there's fifth, sixth, seventh generation acupuncturists or qigong masters that just
Hmm.
I've run into. Like, okay, so that became interesting for me. But I also wanted to learn from them. The simplest bit of wisdom was 10 years of my study, some in
Hmm.
some cases, like so surrounding myself with giants, putting that intention out there in the world that this is what I'm trying to do, this is what I'm aligning with, having the faith in that,
Yeah.
there's a lot of that. And comment, thank you, by the way,
Oh, you're welcome.
is very affirming. And number two is people feel it. And I know people feel open here. And that's part of to me, that's part of the key of healing. If you can't relate, you can't open up, you can't
Yeah.
pour it out, well, it's just going to stay in. And that's where the disease festers. That's where the breakdown,
Yeah.
the resistance.
Well, you want to feel, and for me, I mean, I hope others want to feel this way too. I'm just going to use chiropractic as an example. I go and yeah, we can keep going all the time, all the time, all the time. But at some level, everybody wants to feel like they can help their own body themselves. And so it's great to have that experience. But when I came to you, this stuff was like deep trauma release that just isn't happening at your typical chiropractic visit. It just wasn't.
That's true. That's
And
true.
that's where, and when I saw you, you're like, you're not going to need to look at this for at least another 6 months. I didn't need you to tell me. You energetically connected my literally history of all that there is. And it went through me and out. And it was just, I had to lay there for a moment because I've never felt anything like that. So
Yeah, yeah.
I loved it so much. I told Brian, I'm like, you got to check this out. I mean, this was amazing. And it was, I would recommend at least everyone should have an experience, in my opinion, doing the NET at some point in their life.
Yeah, yeah.
Um, so
We did a couple things, and the NET component is where I'm even a little different than this traditional NET crowd is I studied the cosmic patterns, and so part of your release was tied to big cycles of energy that
yeah.
interestingly you showed up on a very profound day in the energy pattern to allow a deep release in other ways. Patients and clients that have been with me for years, it's it's profound each and every time they
Yeah.
come, usually once every week or once every 2 weeks. Though I see the cycles of what their release is in relationship to the star patterns, it's quite poetic. So it's
Um,
almost as if certain external factors allow certain depths of healing to occur at certain
mhm.
times.
Yeah.
Now, between that 6 month, what I said, I remember saying this to you, it was about you're going to be processing and releasing this for 6 months. It's
Okay.
going to
That's
be
what it
like,
was.
it was the NET component that we got to. Physically, I know we could have tuned in a few
We
more
needed to
times
do
in
more
between.
work. And that's what I'm saying. It, this is it starts the journey. It starts the journey because, like you said, it opens up to bigger things.
Yeah.
But in general, it's like I say this with hypnosis too. You only really need one session to try to get the healing that you need. You don't need to have to go every day, but you have to do more stuff because once you open that door, then there's another thing that gets addressed and another thing that gets addressed. It's not that it's a daunting thing. It's just the reality
Well,
that we came into to be physical beings,
well,
you know?
if we are infinite, if we are made in the image of the creator, if we
Yeah.
are all one, that means there's stuff to once the cork pops to keep on working through.
Yes.
Well, for you, someone who's been doing self-health care and going to practitioners and doing classes and becoming more aware, you can do a lot more for yourself than the
Yes.
average person. And it's also one of my passions is to give people tools and empower them with education and resources that they can do it on their own.
Yeah.
And just like me, though, there's going to be certain itches or certain places I can't reach by myself that when two
Exactly.
gather in that intention, there's the greater force. There's a physics, there's a biblical way of going about it. It's all there's. We can look at the same analogy in water. When there's two waves, two energies, two intentions of the same variety, when they meet, they double in size.
Mm-hmm.
So this is where the healer and the healee work together to get to a better place together. There's something within me that shifts every time I do a session with somebody. There's a topic that's relevant, or there's something I just overcame, or there's something I'm working through that this session allows me to see it in a new way. And I'm processing sometimes as them. It's pretty neat.
Goosebumps. Love it. Oh my God. You're like my brother from another life. Like a twin brother. I feel like so kindred to you. Well, I know we're kind of getting close to the time. I just wanted to say really quick, let's talk a little bit about where people can find you, what you've been up to. It looks like you're you have your website, which is
drkeving.com, drkeving.com. Yep.
Yep.
That's like the main hub. Yeah.
That's the main hub.
Instagram.
YouTube. And you're part of the remote healing groups. You have a television show, Unwinding Stress, which I'm going to be on that one, I think.
That's right. So, well, it will be recording September, and then right. Oh, we haven't scheduled yet, have we?
We haven't scheduled. It's at the end. It's on like the 25th or something.
Perfect. Then we're all set. Then we're all okay.
Yes, and you have a book, Decode Your Pain: How to Make Sense of Your Symptoms and Start Living Your Best Life.
Yes.
That's amazing.
That's right.
So you're an author. Yeah. It looks like you have more books out there, or
Well, I have I have actually a couple ready to go in my brain and the outlines, but getting it done and publishing them.
Well, it's so great. I'm so honored to have had you on. I mean, I think we should do this again as time goes by, and we'll have more conversations to expand on. Is there anything else that you'd like to share before we wrap up?
Well, there's so much healing potential in everyone. It's just waiting to come out of you. And finding a practitioner you resonate with is one of the key pieces. So whether it may be me, maybe somebody else, reach out to me, schedule a consultation. Everyone leaves the consultation with advice, with direction, with whether it's stuff to do on their own, a supplement to get, protocols to keep practicing. You're going to leave something positive. And then following up, whether with me or finding someone locally to help you hands-on. There's things that can be done remotely, things that can be done over Zoom, yes. But there's something with a hands-on component that's also super profound. So I like to help people find the right people. I like to help people in different ways that I do things and turn people on to products and services. And all that's through my website, drkeving.com. So it's within, though. And it's the inner game. It's the battle for your mind. And your spiritual essence is the fuel of the engine of reality. And as you reclaim your power, reclaim yourself, know yourself, love yourself, that is, to me, the most important game of being alive here and today. Yeah.
Awesome. Well, thank you again for coming. I know you're very busy, so I look forward to seeing you next month. And I want to thank my audience for tuning in. I'll be putting all of your information in the description of this video, so you can reach Dr. Kevin. I highly recommend visiting him. Extremely knowledgeable and helpful, as we just discussed. So thanks again for tuning in, and we will see you next time on the Conscious Broadcast. Have a lovely day.